Let's make use of parametric design to create a finger jointed box so that we can use the sides to laser cut templates for marking out our joints. Our learning intentions will be the application of CAD in a technology project. Successful students will be able to make an item with multiple parts, duplicate items in a meaningful way, use variables to control a parametric design, and add or subtract material from a 3D object. So here I am in OnShape, and you can see that I've already created a parametric finger joint box, so I could teach myself how to do it. So I'm now going to create a new document. The document is going to be called parametric finger joint box v2, and I'm going to click OK. Once it's loaded, we're going to think about the variables we're going to need to be able to control our box. There are, I think, 5 of them, so let's go through. So I'm going to create a variable, and the first variable is going to be the width of the box. And let's just set our width of the box to be 75 millimeters. I'm going to create another variable now. I can just go there, and I'm going to create a variable called length, L-E-N-G-T-H, of the box, and I'm going to make it 150 wide. And press tick. I'm going to create a variable called the height of the box, and this won't be the total height of the box. This will be just the height of the main joining material, and I'm going to set that to be 50 millimeters. I'm going to set a variable to be the thickness, or the main material thickness. So I call it material thickness, and that will be 12 millimeters. And I'm going to finally set a final variable called lid thickness, and that will be the thickness of our lids, and they're going to be 3 millimeters. There's going to be one on the top and one on the bottom, but I'm going to call them lids. So I've got those 5 variables, and they're going to define the size and shape of my box. So let's start by drawing the front panel, or the length panel, so how long the box is. So I'm going to draw a sketch on the front view. So I'm going to press on the sketch button and hover over until I get the yellow sounding on the the yellow the outline on the front plane, and I'm going to click on the front plane. I'm going to use the front button here to look at this from the front view, and I'm going to draw my rectangle tool out like so. And the 2 variables that I'm going to apply to this are going to be the dimension of the length and the dimension of the height. And I didn't press enter on that, so click again, double click to get back into that, typing in length, click on it and press enter, which I wouldn't do last time. So that's going to be the dimension of my box. I'm now going to center it on my screen. That's sort of important to do. So I'm going to use the line tool here, and I'm going to use the construction tool to make it a construction line. I'm going to hover over this line until the midpoint icon shows up. I'm going to click. I'm going to move my mouse over here. I'm not clicking and dragging, I'm just clicking and then letting go and moving. And then I'm going to hover over until my midpoint appears over here and press click. I'm now going to change my constraint to midpoint, and I'm going to click on the line I just created and the dot in the middle, which is called the origin, and that's going to lock it there nicely. I'm now going to press on my tick button, and I'm going to create my extrude. I'm going to click on my rectangle, and I'm going to choose it out to the material thickness and press tick. So if I now look at that from a 3D point of view, that one there, you can see that I have my 3D shape in length. I'm now going to put, before I do anything else, my finger joints into this particular part. So I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to create a sketch on this particular face of that part. So I call it part 1. And I'm going to show the front view so I can see it. And I'm going to draw 2 rectangles, one here, like so, and one here, like so, but I'm not going to see how that's gone yellow. I'm going to avoid that for the time being, and I'm going to move that there. I try to avoid locking things just in case I don't want to. So that would have locked it in line with this, which I actually do want, but I try to avoid doing that. I'm going to set some dimensions now. The dimension of this line here and this line here, so the between there, is going to be equal to the height divided by 5, which ends up being 10, but it could change. Same on this side, so I'm going to go from here to here and over here like so, and it'll be height divided by 5, because I'm going to have 5 pins or 5 fingers on my finger joint. I'm also going to set the dimension of this line here, which is right in. It's hard to sort of get, so you might want to zoom up until you get it. This one here is going to be equal to, you guessed it, height divided by 2, and press enter. Sorry, not divided by 2, divided by 5. Double click back in there and go 5. Rather than actually typing the same thing in here, I'm going to use the constraint tool, and I'm going to use the constraint tool to make it equal, this one equal to this one, and that locks that in nicely. And I'm also going to use the constraint tool on the vertical to lock this point here and this point here together, so they'll be the same distance. And now I'm going to do the dimension of this one on here to be equal to the material thickness. Don't use equal, material thickness. I'm using a different app in my head. Okay, the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to replicate this on this other side here. So if I zoom out over this side and zoom in over this side, I'll move it a bit over. So I need to replicate this over here. The easiest way to do that is to do a mirror. So I'm going to create a line, which is going to be a construction line. Now I'm going to use the midpoint from here and go down to the midpoint here. And that's going to be my mirror line. I'm going to press escape to finish doing those lines. And then I'm going to press on mirror. It says to select a mirror line. So I'm going to click on that. It now selects the things I want to mirror. So I'm going to click on this one, and you can see them appearing over there, all 4 of them, like so, and then this one, and then this one, then this one, and this one. So those are mirrored over there. I'm now going to press tick to accept that, and I'm now going to extrude this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. And if I look at this in 3D, let's just look at it that way, you see it's popping out there. I need to just do a remove on that. Then I'm going to press tick. Actually, what I should do is I should remove it by the thickness, the material thickness, because if I make it thicker than 25, that won't work. So I need to press tick, and that's going to remove those parts. So I now need to create my rectangle that goes along the right or left hand side, and you can see I've got a right plane there. That's my right plane there. So I'm going to draw it on that plane there, but I'm not going to draw it on that plane. I'm actually going to draw it on this particular little rectangle here, because I want to draw my sketch so that it starts from that point there and goes out by width and height. So I'm going to hit sketch. I'm going to draw on the end grain of this. I'm going to move it around to right view, and I'm going to draw from this top corner. So I'm going to lock it to that top corner, and then I'm going to draw down to about, let's just go down to here. Now, rather than actually defining height, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this project tool here to project from here to there. So there's a new little dot there on the screen, and I'm going to use the coincident tool to lock this one to that one, and that's going to set the height. All I now need to do is I'm going to set the width. Dimension tool, and this will be the width, which is 75 at this stage. I've now got the sketch that's going to draw my end. So if I go to the right view there, I'm going to use this sketch to draw my end. So I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to extrude that, and I'm going to extrude it negative thickness of my material. I'm going to make sure it's a new part. I don't want to add to the part. I want to make sure it's a new part. Now notice I didn't press on this little bit up here. So if I click on the root parts to extrude, I should probably also click on that so that it extrudes the full thing in. However, I don't really want that, but I'll do it this time just to be sure, and press on tick. I now have 2 out of the 4 main parts that I need. In order to recreate these now, I just have to use the mirror function. Now it just so happens that my right plane goes through the direct middle of this point here because I locked it to the middle. So all I need to do is press the mirror button here, press on the part, click over here to mirror plane and use the right button, and you'll see that the part goes all the way over here, but I do need to select new and press click. So now you can see if I press on this, it'll bring it around nicely. I've got 2 end parts. In order to create the plane that I need to do the mirror for this part, it needs to go over this side, I need a mid plane. So I'm going to click on plane, and I'm going to choose a mid plane, and it needs to be halfway between that line there, so that face there, and if I turn around now, the other face it needs to be is between here and here. Now I've got to zoom in until I get the face. And it's created that tiny little plane there. And I'm actually going to give it a name. And I'm going to call it the end mid plane, just so I know I'm clicking on it. So I can see it down there. This is the end mid plane. It's written backwards, but I can see it there. I'm now going to use the mirror tool. And I'm going to mirror this object. And I'm going to click on mirror plane, and I'm going to use my little tiny mid plane, which is hard to select because for some reason I can't. But if I go around this side and click over here, I finally selected it, and it's now created that extra part over there, and I'm going to press tick. So I now have all of my parts, but one problem I've got is if I turn off part 1, you can see that I don't have any joints in this particular piece of wood, and I need some joints in this particular piece of wood. So I'm going to show that part again, and this time I'm going to use a boolean. Before I do that though, I no longer need any of these planes, so I'm just going to quickly turn them off. That one off, that one off, and that one off. Now it's just a bit easier to see. I probably don't need that little plane I created before, so let's find that end plane, and turn that off too. So now I'm going to use the boolean function, and I'm going to do a subtraction. The tools are the things that will do the cutting. So this is this one and this one. The targets are the things that will get cut. So I'm going to click on targets and click on this one and this one. And I want to keep my tools. I want to keep, this is what it's going to look like at the end, but I want to keep those other parts and press tick. I now have all my finger jointed parts. So if I turn that one off, you can see that those are finger jointed. And if I turn that one off, you can see that those are finger jointed. So all my finger joints are now done. What I need to do now is I need to put a top and a bottom on. To draw the top, I just need to go sketch and click on one of these faces. That one will do. And I then look at it from the top view. Let's zoom out a bit. I'm going to use the project button again and go from this corner to this corner. And then I'm going to draw a corner rectangle from here all the way down to here. And that's going to be my top part. So let's press on tick and look at that from this view here. And we will see that if we do an extrude on this part and this part, and we make it, looking at thickness, the lid thickness, and we choose a new part, you'll get a 3mm thick lid. I'm going to press tick. And let's repeat that process for the bottom. Draw a sketch, press on tick. Nope, sorry, bad me. If I press on tick and go out of the sketch, I need to double click on it over here to go back in. I want to look at it from the bottom view now. Let's zoom out a bit. Go through to project and project that corner and the opposite corner over on the far side. And then click on here and draw out my rectangle and press tick now. And I'm going to look at this from a 3D perspective. I'm going to then do extrude this one, and whoops, that one over there behind there. It's a bit hard to select. And this is going to be thickness, and it's going to be lid thickness, and it's going to be a new shape. And press tick. So you can see it's a different color even. Final thing I probably should do is put a little slot in for the money to go in, because it is supposed to be a money box. Let's do a small slot for the money box. You need to figure out how big a slot should be. I have no idea, so I'm just going to put in a quick rectangle like so. That's going to be probably too big, and I'm not going to be too fussed about where it is because I'm not that fussed about it. So I'm going to click on extrude, click on the rectangle. I'm going to go remove, but I only want to remove the thickness of the lid. So now I have a hole through there, and that's the money box. The final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some labels on here. So let's press tick. And this is so that when I laser cut my stencils, I'll know which side I'm looking at. So I'm going to draw a sketch on this side, and I'm going to look at it from the front view, and I'm going to use the text tool. And I'm going to draw out by clicking and dragging. For some strange reason, you have to click and drag this one, my text, and I'm going to call this side, S-I-D-E-A, and the best one to do this with is going to be Alerta Stencil, which has little gaps in it. And I'm going to press on tick, and you can see it's huge. So what I'm going to do is use the dimension tool to click from here out to here, and it doesn't need to be bigger than 8 millimeters high, which is quite small. In order to line that up nicely in the middle, I'm going to use a line tool, and I'm going to use a construction tool, and I'm going to go from the midpoint, which is there, you can see it as you hover over, there it is, to this midpoint here. Press like that, and then I'm going to go horizontal and put it in, oops, not horizontal, Control Z, or undo, undo's up here, not horizontal, vertical, like so. And I probably should do the same thing for the horizontal, so from here to here, find the midpoint of that one, and I might go over to this one. Oh, I'm going to zoom out, there it is there, and now I'm going to do that perfectly horizontal, and that's going to be locked into place right there. So I'm going to press tick. Let's look at that from 3D so I can see what I'm doing here. And once again, I'm going to press on extrude. I'm going to hover over it so that the whole sketch is selected like that. You can see it extrudes out. I want to go remove, and I want to choose the material thickness and click on tick. So now I cheated and I pressed pause, and I've done that. I've now got two sides with labels on them and two sides with no labels on them. So there you go, as I go around. So I need the sides with labels on them so that I can right click on them. So right click there and export as DXF. And I'm going to call this box side A and export that, and that will download. And then I'm going to right click on this one and go export as DXF. And this is going to be box side B. And I'm going to click export. And that's all you need to do. You need to then submit those so they can be laser cut. Obviously, if you want to change the size, you need to go all the way back up here. I'm going to double click on this one. I'm going to make this one 140 wide, and it will redraw the whole box to be 140 wide. Now notice how that is not sitting in the middle, so I really should have fixed that sketch so it did fit in the middle, but that's okay because we're going to hand cut this anyway. It's mainly for the joints that we want this. Now I'd need to right click on here and export this as a drawing and do that again if I wanted to actually have a different size box.